Welcome in again. West Virginia is on a bye week, but there are no bye weeks when it comes to the Musings from the Mountains podcast, presented by WVSports.com. I am Keenan Cummings, the managing editor.
And I'm Patrick Kotnik, staff writer.
Purpose of this is we're going to take your questions. No football to talk about, obviously. We already addressed basketball earlier this week. We ask you to give us some questions, and we're going to try our best to answer them. Go ahead, Pat. We're just going to jump straight into it.
All right, here we go. Question number 1. What position in recruiting improves the most going forward? I've always thought linebacker defensive line was a problem before.
I think that's an excellent question, and I think it has an obvious answer. I think it's defensive line for West Virginia. You've already seen that a little bit. I know things didn't work out with Aaron Lewis, obviously, flipping to Michigan, but they're pulling in some high-level high school players. They're getting guys to visit. I think the biggest thing here is it's a difference in scheme. You know, obviously in the 3-3-5, guys had to hold gaps, basically serve as placeholders. In this, they're asked to be more active. They're asked to make plays, and let's just be honest, guys want to look at their stat book. Guys want to make plays. I mean, that's college football. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the best approach or the best type of defense, but it definitely helps in recruiting, and I think that's one position where West Virginia is going to continue to see guys. Get guys in for visits, get guys in the fold. That's where they make a difference, I think, more than any other.
And you got some talented D linemen already in this recruiting class. You got Quay Mays, you got Lennell Carr, definitely a talented option. So.
And Quay Mays, perfect example here is exactly what I'm talking about. He picked West Virginia in large part because in Iowa State's defense, they do a 3-3-5 type hybrid deal. He was just going to be asked to eat up blockers and hold two people. In West Virginia's defense, as you've seen with Darius Stills all over the place, they're asked to do a lot. They're asked to get up to quarterback, and that excites.
Well, they're no longer just there to plug up gap, just occupy space. They're coached to attack, coached to be very active on the defensive side of the ball. Next question here: will we get to see anyone new on kick return?
I don't think there's anything broken there. I don't. I mean, I might be missing something.
Until you say that.
Yeah.
Now that you say that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's West Virginia special teams, but I think that Sam James is fine there. You could use a lot of different people. Winston Wright's a guy they could use there. They could use Ollie Jennings. They could use a lot of different people, even some of the running backs, Alex Singfield. But I like what I've seen so far from Sam James. I think he's just got to be a little bit more decisive at times. But overall, I don't have any complaints.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I think Sam James, he's a very obviously talented receiver. We've seen that so far, not only in the passing game, but also he's become a factor in the run game too. I feel like he can figure out a couple more things on kick return to really be more of a effective kick returner. But I feel like they like the direction where they're going as far as having him back there.
Yeah.
Offensive line question here: can Josh Sills qualify for a medical red shirt?
Can he? Yes. It's a process that you'll apply for that later on. It's not necessarily something that you'll immediately apply for, and it's up to Sills too. I mean, he has a possible NFL future, so it's going to be interesting to see if that's what he wants to do or if that's what West Virginia wants to do. So there's a lot of questions there. But can he? Yeah. He only played in 2 games this year. Definitely a chance there if he wants to recoup a 6-year down the line.
And it's going to be very interesting to see what West Virginia decides to do in the coming weeks with the offensive line. They just played. They stayed with the 5 starters against Kansas. Very interested to see. Usually they rotate at least 1 or 2 others, in there. They did so up until the Kansas game, but very interested to see what direction do they go. Do they give John Hughes some more snaps? Brandon Yates, Parker Moore are the 2 freshmen that they've talked about. They've talked about maybe giving them reps at the maybe towards the end of the season when they're more ready. So I feel like that's an interesting case in point there as far as developing depth and getting guys experience.
Yeah, I think they're gonna have to play more guys. You can't go through the whole season with just 5.
Especially how Mike Brown fits into the mix as well.
Yeah.
Coming off of an injury.
I think he plays against Texas.
Yeah. Next question has to deal with the Bandit position. How big of an impact does VD make against Texas? Obviously, that's Vandarius Cowan.
Usually when someone says how big of an impact does VD have, it's not a good thing. This is a little bit different. I think that it's going to really depend on practice, where he's at from a physical standpoint, where he's at to hold up. The one thing it gives you no matter what is another guy at that Bandit spot. They've been searching for somebody that can spell Quandarius Qualls, and I think at worst he's going to be that guy. Maybe he gives you 25 snaps. Maybe he gives you an even split. The one thing that he has going for him that West Virginia simply just doesn't have a lot on the roster is he's a big, physical guy. He's going to get a lot of things done. I think that there's a big play for him down the line Does it happen immediately? I think that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I feel like he's a perfect fit for that Bandit position. Like you said, Quandarius Qualls has been playing a lot of snaps there on the defensive side of the ball at the Bandit position. So, I mean, you got to give him some help. You got to give him, some breathers. You got to have somebody able to give you, a quality effort, on at least, you would say, half those snaps.
Yeah, Qualls can't play 70-some snaps. Yeah. It's just not doable.
Talking about quarterbacks here with this next question, as soon as I find it. If for some reason AK, Austin Kendall, was unable to play for an extended period of time, who would likely back him up at this point? Could Jarrett Dagey play if needed?
Could he play? I'm not sure. At this point, I think that the plan is to redshirt him. I think they want to redshirt him. Could he? I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I think they'd consider it if it was a situation where Kendall's going to be lost for a significant period of time. He has the most experience, but right now, if you're going to pick a guy, it would be Jack Allison. It hasn't been great for him at times. Obviously, throwing into the cover 2 was one that he'd like to have back, but he has experience. I think that Neil's made it clear if he trusts him, so he'd be your guy. I think that he'd be number 2.
Yeah, I feel like Jack Allison's the number 2 as well. But I am still interested to see, what kind of opportunities Trey Lowe still gets maybe down the road. Like you said, that against Missouri, obviously Jack on the only possession he played and ended with him throwing a pick 6. Trey Lowe did get some snaps there right at the very end, but I don't think he even attempted a pass there. So I would say at this point they're still rolling with Jack as the number 2, but still interested to see if Trey Lowe can climb up here at the end of the season. Bye week question: what is the schedule for team and coaches this bye week?
Well, it's pretty simple. They had off earlier in the week. They practiced for 2 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and a little bit Thursday, and then hit the road. Coaches are out right now. Group coaches were at Northwest Mississippi Junior College last night. They're going to be spread out looking at commitments, looking at players they're targeting, looking at future guys to get evaluations. That's what a big part of this week's about, is just getting on the road and being able to eyeball some of these guys, because there's nothing like in-person evaluations. That's where coaches build most of their database, moving forward, not only for this class, filling out the last 10 or so spots, but next class as well.
Do you see them doing that for the second bye week that comes up?
Yeah, they'll use some too. Those are your 2 biggest days until you get into January, when you can start hitting the road again and really get on to some people.
Offensive line question next. I'm curious where the coaches' heads are about the offensive line. 1, how did we go from so bad to pretty good? Was it X's and O's or Jimmy's and Joe's? 2, will we see the exact same starting 5 for Texas as Kansas?
If it's not broke, don't fix it. Hey, you rush for season highs 2 weeks in a row. Obviously you run for 173 yards against NC State, 192 yards against Kansas. I recommend, if you are a member of WVSports.com, please check out the comparison between week 1 against James Madison and week 2, or week 4, against Kansas in the run game. Coaches did some different things, some window dressing, but the offensive line got it done. Matty Brown, who does our film, does an excellent breakdown.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty much just laid right out there for you, pointing it out, and I recommend you take a look at that. I don't want to spoil that, so take a look at that. If you're not a member, I recommend you sign up just to check it out, because it's definitely worth the price of admission.
Like I said, as we mentioned earlier, I really feel like some guys will start to rotate in. It will be the same starting 5, though. Like you said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I feel like same starting 5. I think you'll definitely see that against Texas. Now, going back to the quarterback position, what does the QB roster look like beyond January 2020?
Well, I'm not a fortune teller. I want to make that very clear to start
Not
with.
some kind of wizard?
No, I'm not. I wish I was. That's Bill Snyder, and he is not coaching anymore. I do think that something's got to give. I think eventually, I don't see Jack Allison hanging around for the sake of hanging around. If the situation stays as it is, you're going to have a redshirt senior and a redshirt senior, and Jack Allison and Austin Kendall. So one of those guys is probably out of the picture. Obviously, that's pointing more towards Jack. I don't want to speak for him, but that's just basic logic, unless he just wants to be a career backup, likes the situation. You never know, so everybody's different. But the rest of the room stays the same. You add Garrett Green, you have Jarrett Dagey, and Trey Lowe. I think that's what you got moving forward until you add more pieces in 2021 and beyond.
Now, staying with the quarterback position, how is Kendall's finger that had stitches? Do you think the bandage he wears could be affecting his deep throw / accuracy in general?
He's said no. He was asked about that, how it affected anything. He said it's had no effect. It's basically just a situation he's had to deal with and move forward. He's made it pretty much a non-issue. So if it is, he's done everything he can to make sure we think it isn't.
And as Neil Brown said to your question this week, Keenan, how does West Virginia complete some of those big plays? How do they generate some big plays? They got to complete some of those passes.
Yeah, a pretty obvious answer to an obvious question, but he did get into what I was trying to get at a little bit, and that's just some of the things that have to happen. Receivers got to get open. The ball's got to be placed better. They've got to do a better job being schematically getting them open, because 4 of 18 on deep balls is not going to get it done. That's not a really high percentage throw, obviously. Will Greer last year was 35 for 80, but 35 for 80 is really good in those situations. I would argue it's probably one of the better marks in the country.
Now, going back to the defensive side of the ball, what can be done at this point with cornerback depth? Washington and Bailey have performed well, but also playing most of the game. What do you think? What do we do with the track meet portion of the schedule coming up? These two guys will get worn down.
You're going to have to play guys. I mean, it's simple as that. And I asked Jamil Adai that, and he said the same thing. You're going to have to develop depth, and the only way you develop depth is by playing guys. That means you're going to have to throw freshmen in the fire.
Experience.
Yeah, you got to have to throw freshmen in the fire. Nick Troy's played a little bit this year. I think that you got to get Tay Mayo in the game at some point and see if he can hang this year, or you're going to redshirt him. I mean, you still got 4 games to play with regardless.
So you got Corey Turner
yeah.
as well?
I don't see him playing, but he's an option. And then you have, who knows, maybe Drayshawn Miller comes back at some point.
Yeah.
So you got to play guys, though. I mean, you're not going to – if West Virginia had an injury there to one of those seniors, you're playing a freshman. And if you're going to be playing a freshman, you want to make sure that guy at least has a little bit of experience under his belt in high-leverage situations. So the easiest answer to that question is play him.
And we've seen the safety position do that up until this point. You know, Tyke Smith, Kerry Martin, 2 true freshmen that have gotten some pretty valuable experience there playing safety. And like you said, for quarterback, you're going to have to do the same thing. This is a young and inexperienced team that Brown said the team had coming into this year. Obviously, that was put on display through the first couple weeks of the season. Now you're starting to see guys get some more experience. But if you want more depth at cornerback, you gotta continue to play guys. You gotta have those guys see more snaps, and you just gotta develop depth in that way.
And I think we'd be remiss with not pointing out how well Akeem Bailey has played. Mm-hmm. He's been a guy that has struggled at times with his confidence, but I think he's been very, very good this year.
I agree. Last question here. Over/under on penalty flags for horns down against Texas.
Am I setting it, or is he asking me to set the over/unders?
I guess, yeah.
1.5.
1.5?
1.5. I think West Virginia. I think it's a lock they get 1, but
at least 1.
Will they get 2?
I think they'll get 2.
With the discipline that Brown is trying to instill in this team, will they get 2? Will they play with fire? I think they definitely get called for 1, but. Let's just talk for a second. Isn't it ridiculous that that's a penalty? Should you not? You shouldn't be able to throw horns up if you what's the difference? 1.5. That's the answer to your question. Thank you again for tuning in. Do want to make it known that West Virginia is going to have their gold blue game, Patrick.
Yeah, basketball
coming
up.
Basketball,
October 11th. Friday.
It's already here. Basketball's here. They started practice today. Going to continue to get more into that. We got a lot of stuff coming on the site with basketball as well as our football coverage. A lot of stuff coming this week for Texas. West Virginia's probably going to host some official visitors. At least one for sure, and Sean Martin. Probably going to be some more guys as well. We'll get into that. We'll get into the game. I've already started getting into a little bit of pregame stuff because I just couldn't wait. No such thing as a bye week at WVSports.com and on Musings from the Mountains. Thank you for tuning in once again. We look forward to you joining us when we reconvene. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. Give us a like. Yep. Yeah. Give us a like. We like talking to you, so you should like liking us. But thanks for tuning in again. We'll talk to you here soon.